The Trump administration is trying to contain the fallout from the president's latest corruption scandal, and it is not working. Outrage over Trump's so-called settlement with the IRS, which aims to hand over cash payments to insurrectionists, is roiling the Republican Party to the point of open revolt that is endangering much of Trump's policy agenda. The settlement, if one can even call it that, because it wasn't approved by a judge or kind of by anyone, really, other than Trump and his personal lawyer, who now conveniently is the acting attorney general of the United States of America. This settlement is being sold as a resolution to a $10 billion lawsuit that Donald Trump, the citizen, filed against the IRS, an agency that Donald Trump, the president, has fundamental control over. It was announced on Monday by the Justice Department that is now run by Donald Trump's aforementioned own former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. The plan is that Trump would drop the $10 billion demand, while a $1.776 billion so-called anti-weaponization fund would be created to compensate people who claim that they were targeted by the Biden administration. $1.77 billion. Get it? 1776? The recipients of your taxpayer dollars could include the nearly 1,600 people charged, convicted, and then pardoned for their roles in the January 6th assault on the Capitol, many of whom are reportedly already preparing their applications and anticipating major payouts. Again, I remind you, that will come from your taxpayer dollars. Perhaps Donald Trump asking Republicans to help him pay off the very people who sent them running and hiding for their lives in service of stealing the election, for him was finally a bridge too far, because the slush fund has not gone over well with elected Republicans. By Thursday, the acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, I'm going to say this every time I say his name because it's super relevant, served as Trump's own personal defense attorney in 3 of the criminal cases that were brought against him. Todd Blanche was dispatched to meet behind closed doors with Republican senators to try and smooth things over. That effort failed spectacularly. It was described as a 2-hour blow-up in which dozens of Republican senators vented their anger and concern, according to the New York Times. But the blow-up was not contained to that one meeting. Many Republicans took their outrage public. Here's a sampling of what Republicans have said on the record about this fund. Senator Thom Tillis called it stupid on stilts and the definition of tyranny and a payout pot for punks. Former Majority Leader Mitch McConnell called it utterly stupid and morally wrong. Senator Bill Cassidy, who just lost his primary to a Trump-endorsed challenger, said that the American people are not concerned with, quote, putting together a $1.8 billion fund for the president and his allies to pay whomever they wish with no legal precedent or accountability. Senator Susan Collins said the fund is in real trouble, and it should be. The current Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who's still considered a Trump ally, said he's not a big fan of the deal. Senator Ron Johnson, typically a Trump loyalist, went so far as to agree with another's assessment that it was a galactic blunder. Senator Kevin Cramer, a MAGA loyalist and one of Trump's earliest backers, said the fund is politically unexplainable, end quote. That's just Republicans in the Senate balking at this particularly brazen bit of corruption. MS Now has learned that there's major opposition also growing among Republicans in the House. The Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, a Republican from Pennsylvania, said, quote, we're going to try and kill it. He's now leading a bipartisan effort, along with the Democrat Tom Suozzi of New York, to pass legislation blocking taxpayer money from being used for this. As you can imagine, several lawsuits have already been filed against this fund. That includes a lawsuit challenging the legality of the fund filed by Harry Dunn and Daniel Hodges, 2 law enforcement officers who were attacked and injured on January 6th. Joining me now is one of those 2 law enforcement officers, Daniel Hodges. He's a police officer for the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. He was one of the many members of law enforcement that defended the Capitol on January 6th. He is here in his own personal capacity. He's not representing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. Officer Hodges, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
This goes beyond the capacity to explain. After all of the outrage of January 6th, after hearing all of these Republicans on January 6th and January 7th talk about how Donald Trump had to be held accountable, after Donald Trump's reelection and the pardoning of these insurrectionists, to now imagine that you and I are going to pay for some sort of retribution on their behalf is beyond the capacity of the mind to process.
Right. Yeah. People ask me, why I filed this lawsuit, and it's hard to find the words, right, to explain, because the whole situation is so absurd. Well, why should the United States government pay the people who attacked it and tried to, stop its function, tried to stop the transfer of power, wanted to assassinate the vice president, members of Congress, terrorize the staff. How does it make sense that we should pay them for the pleasure that we all had to subject ourselves that day?
Yeah, so that's the one part that doesn't make sense. And then the other part, and I'm curious from your perspective, the other part is the way the deal went down, right? Donald Trump suing the IRS, then settling with the IRS, which he controls, using the Department of Justice, which he controls, and his own personal lawyer to do this. It doesn't feel like anybody who wasn't involved with Donald Trump was involved in the negotiations of this. Donald Trump made a fantastic deal with Donald Trump and organizations he controls.
Yeah, that's certainly what it looks like. This, as horrific as his first administration was, it was, extremely professional by comparison to this one. This one's just absolutely full of complete loyalists and no one who will do anything to oppose Trump's wishes, no matter how absurd or corrupt they are. So that's what we're seeing here. $2 billion of American taxpayer money just goes to him without any significant, real, measurable oversight whatsoever.
So your lawsuit contends that the administration, in making this deal, has exceeded its statutory authority because it created the fund without the authorization of Congress. There's no one. There's no judge. There's no magistrate. Like, literally nobody oversaw the creation of this thing. Is it interesting to you that I just named all those Republicans in the Senate and the House who are objecting to this? Like, does that feel meaningful for you, or have you seen this play before and you know how it ends?
Is it meaningful? I mean, yes and no. It is meaningful in that they are actually saying something in opposed to Trump's agenda, but it's not because, what you have to understand is that they could stop this at any time. The Republicans in Congress have the power to stop this and everything else. They could stop warmongering. They could stop the insane, gas prices, food prices, any form of corruption and terrible decisions. They could end today, but they're not going to because they don't actually disapprove.
But we haven't heard this much criticism. I mean, we sort of heard it with the Epstein stuff. We haven't heard this much criticism. I'm curious about that. Why? I mean, affordability, the war in Iran, all these things. This one seems to have motivated a number of these Republicans. I don't know whether some of them are past their primaries or some of them got primaried out because they were on the wrong side of Trump. But something seems to be empowering Republicans to speak more strongly about this one. Do you have any idea why?
It's hard to say. I would like to believe that it's just because how egregious the whole situation is, that because, so many Republicans were hiding in fear for their life, running away that day, that they paying these insurrectionists millions and millions of dollars would empower them to commit further acts of violence. And that's something that they should all be afraid of.
Well, your lawyer, Brendan Ballou, who was a DOJ special counsel investigating January 6 cases, made an interesting point. He said the primary risk is that this money is going to be used to fund paramilitary organizations that are loyal to the president. The financial support for violence that is going to be the most important thing. It is fundamentally new and different from, say, the Qatari jet. It is, right? Like, the Qatari jet's weird and we shouldn't be taking it. And it's like, there must be rules about this. This is entirely different. This is literally this move to sort of encourage people who engaged in armed insurrection and violence against Americans' democracy and people like you who were fighting to maintain it that day. Right.
So, yeah, these people, there's only so many things that hold people back from committing these acts of violence, and that's fear of legal repercussions, which Donald Trump has already made clear they won't have because he pardoned them the first time and has made it clear he has their backs no matter what. It's ethical considerations, which they've made clear they don't have. And it's a lack of resources, which is going to be remedied if they get these millions and millions of dollars. They'll be able to arm themselves further, fund recruiting efforts, all that sort of thing.
$1.776 billion. Daniel Hodges, thank you for being with us today. Daniel Hodges is an officer with the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police, appearing in his own capacity today.